Hello, everyone. My name is Katy with Greenland Quilter, and I'd like to introduce Fallon from So Be It Quilts. And we're going to have a little fun talking about her quilting life and whatever else we decide to talk about. So, first off, I would like Fallon to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself.
So, hi everyone, and thank you, Katy, for having me on your channel to do the interview. I really appreciate it. So, my name's Fallon. I live in Texas. I'm married, have two kids that I homeschool, and I like to quilt. I have a channel where I like to share different patterns I come up with, review different sewing items, and unbox quilting boxes. So, yeah, that's about me in a nutshell.
Uh, did you have a influence for you to learn to sew to begin with?
So, when I was growing up, I liked all sorts of crafts. I was always asking my mom for different crafting supplies, and she would always try to get them for me. At one point, I even learned how to do stained glass. She got me the supplies to do that. I painted. I did needlework. I did all sorts of stuff. I've always loved different crafts. One time, as a kid, I liked to snoop in her her room and her stuff, and I was looking through her closet and found some quilts that she had made. And so I told her I wanted to learn how to do that, so she went and bought me fabric and patterns, and I just pretty much taught myself, looking through magazines and patterns, and figured out how to do it.
Do you know how old you were when you did that?
I think I was around 13 or 14.
Okay, did you start out piecing or did you start out with something simple when you were first investigating whether you wanted to do it or not?
So I am always the type of person where I jump in and just go all in. I don't need to know how to do it. I'm just like, I will jump in and figure it out and and work my way through it. So I think one of the first ones I did was like this big log cabin quilt, and I just started cutting the pieces and sewing it together based on the pictures and everything. And so yeah, just kind of piecing it together and hoping for the best. I quilted them myself too, but I did them by hand. My stepdad made me this big frame. He nailed together pieces of wood, and I would wrap the quilt around the ends, and get it really tight. And then he had clamps that I clamped on the ends, and I would sit on the couch with it on my lap and just sit there and
Did
and
somebody show
hand
you
quilt it.
how to hand stitch the quilting?
No, I didn't know that you could. I didn't learn till later with YouTube and everything that you could take the needle and go up and down under the fabric. I did it one at a time. I put it through, pulled it through the bottom, then went up, back
Yeah, I
up,
would have done
and
the same thing. Yep.
it worked. It held it together.
So you've been doing this for a long time now then, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Um, what are your favorite styles of fabric?
I like all florals. I love, floral colors, pastel type colors, but really my favorite combination right now is like the folktail line. I think it was Lala Layla Batik who
Yeah,
did it, that folktail line where it mixes like the browns and the pinks and yellows, and I'm always drawn to her fabric line.
do you have a favorite designer? And if you do, tell me why.
So I think it would be like the I think I always call her Layla Boutique, but I think it's Lala. I'm
Yeah, I'm not
really
sure.
horrible with remembering the pronunciation of names and everything, so I apologize. But I always love the quilt patterns and designs that she comes out with. I made one for my daughter from her jelly roll book that is absolutely gorgeous. Um, but I think she's my favorite. I think because we have a lot of the same like fabrics that we like, and prints and florals, and the combination of like the stripes and polka dots in with florals. So I'm always drawn to her designs.
Oh, that's cool. Do you prefer traditional over modern or do you kind of lean in between?
I think I probably lean more traditional. Like I really love star blocks, like log cabin blocks and everything. But I do I think it's Charisma Horton has some modern patterns that I do like, because she likes to take, like, say, a star block and make it really large on her prints, and then she uses all solids. And she'll kind of have, one of hers that I like is a star block, but that she's made larger, but then she has like star blocks also in the pattern that are kind of hanging off the side and not all the way into the quilt. And so it's a little more modern twist on a traditional block. So I can appreciate those as well.
Do you have a future project that you really want to pour yourself into?
Excuse me.
It's okay.
I do. I have really been eyeing like the collage quilts, where they take the fabrics and cut them out and put them on that adhesive and put them on a background and build the quilt out. I've seen so many of those, and I really want to make one. And I've bought some of the supplies for it. I just haven't been able to dive into actually putting it together yet, time wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one that's on my bucket list that I want to try and do.
Do you have any other hobbies besides the quilting that you do or done in the past? That you
I used to paint a lot.
Paint?
I used to paint a lot. I don't as much anymore, but I used to paint a lot. I like to embroider and cross stitch and everything as well. But I feel like I spend most of my time on quilting. I also like to read a lot. I read a lot of books.
That's awesome. I like reading too. So tell me a little bit about your journey into making quilt and how you envisioned it back then and how it's changed as time has evolved.
So when I first started quilting when I was a lot younger, I really liked to just I like to make it and then gift it to someone. All the quilts, I don't have any but one that I made back then, and that's a jean quilt that I made. And that is a funny story behind that one. But all of them that I made then, I made to gift. Like, I made it with someone in mind, like my sister, my brother, different people. I always thought that it would be something like that, where I'm making a quilt and it's meant to gift to somebody, and then it's evolved into having a channel and making designing my own patterns and things like that, which I never thought that would have happened from when I was quilting when I was a kid. And plus, I mean, it's really become a business for us, because we make rulers and all that stuff as well now too. So never thought that would happen.
So basically you do design patterns. Have you thought about becoming a fabric designer as well?
I have thought about it. I just don't know that I have the bandwidth to do all of that with everything else we do. I don't really even sell my patterns. Most of them I put on YouTube, and they're free for everyone to use. So I mean, I would absolutely love to design a fabric line. I just don't know if I'd be have the time to.
Yeah, I hear you on that, especially with your new business going on.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about your ruler thing a little bit later. Can you tell me how you discovered Cotton Cut's puzzle mystery towel?
So I actually saw someone else showing it on YouTube. Since I have a channel, I also follow a lot of other YouTube creators that are quilters. And I believe it was Shonda who was showing it. And she has the channel Under the Needle. If you haven't seen her channel, I absolutely love her. She is fabulous. But I saw her doing hers, and so I put that on my, in my notes, that when they had another one, I wanted to give it a try. So I did, and I think they are doing a fabulous job with it. I like that they have so many different colorways that they offer. So whatever taste you have in fabric, they're definitely going to have a line that will work for you, and then they're all pre-cut. So that's a bonus.
So what was your first Cotton Cuts puzzle mystery case?
Oh man. So we were just talking about that. Now I'm trying to think what it was called. I know it was a black and gray quilt.
Yeah, it was called Pearl, because you did
yeah
with me. Hang on, let me see if I can find out what the name of it was.
I know. I see it in I think I actually have it right here. I do, because when I pulled it out
I was going to ask if you had it on hand to show us.
I don't know if it showed up very well on there, but
Sparkle and Shine is what it was
was it?
called.
Oh, Sparkle and Shine. There you
Yeah.
go. I
At
knew
first
I
I
should
thought
have
it was
looked
Olivia, but it's not. Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
beautiful.
I think I've done 3 or 4 total. I can't even remember. And I've done a few where I've done 2 of this, 2 different colorways on one of them because there was 2 that I really liked a lot and couldn't decide.
Yeah, I've been doing it since Stratford. So my first one was Stratford. And
Oh, so you're way before me then.
yeah, back to 2018. And I did one on the first go around. I didn't even know what I was doing, man. It was so new to me. I knew how to sew, but I had never made a quilt before. So when I joined it, I didn't have any clue. Then I signed up for 2 for Cosmos. So I kind of like rotate. There was a period of time where I was doing only one for 3 times in a row. So it depends. And Carnival kind of sucked me in. So now I'm doing 2. If I'd had the money, they would have been more than 2, but can't do
They're
that.
really fun to do.
Yeah, and I'm learn my skill set has really, I don't know about you, but I bet it's the same for you. The more we do them as time
Yeah.
progresses, the better I get at it. I mean, I'm not making near as many mistakes.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely
mistakes
true
are
with any
okay.
of them that you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let me see here. When did you start your YouTube channel? What were your goals in the beginning? And how has that evolved over time?
So I think I started my YouTube channel in 2019. It's 18 or 19. I don't remember. When I first started it, it was more of I was just going to do like a craft channel and every now and then like share I was thinking I would share different like cooking recipes and just it be eclectic and everything. And then I started sharing a little bit of stuff with the quilting and that really took off. So I was like, oh, I should probably, narrow this down and focus on something. And so I started just focusing it on quilting and sharing different things I was doing, unboxing everything. And honestly, when I first started it, it was more of just an idea of just sharing what I like to do with quilting and different things I was working on. And then it more evolved into a business recently for me. So it was definitely my vision on what it was changed a lot because of that. I never really thought it would amount to anything that actually, made money or anything like that. I never thought it would be anything like that. I more started the channel because I wanted something for me to do. I used to always work outside of the home. And when we moved to Texas, we started homeschooling our kids. And, that was really hard on me at first because I was home all the time. I was home with the kids, having to help them with school, they were younger and I had to do lesson plans. And so I really wanted something for me to work on, some way for me to have fun and pour into like the creative things I like to do. So yeah, it definitely changed since then with my goals for the channel.
Very cool. I noticed that you and your hubby had started making special rulers. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Why did you start making the rulers? How did you come up with the design of the ruler? Explain why one would benefit from your style of rulers.
So how it all evolved was we decided he really likes to woodwork, and so he started making clappers for my Etsy shop, and they were really well received. So we actually, by happenstance, we went to look at a long arm at a quilt shop, and we had never been to the quilt shop before. So we went there, we were looking at the long arm that I was hoping to get at some point. And the shop owner, when we were leaving, I had mentioned something that was sitting on a table there, and I looked at my husband, I was like, you need to make me something like that. And she was like, oh, have you seen this before? And we said no. And she said that the people that made it retired and weren't making them anymore, and there was a huge market for them still. A lot of people still wanted it, but it's patented, So you can't just start making it because they own the patent. So my husband's an attorney, so he found the patent and reached out to the couple that retired and asked them if we could purchase it. And that's how we never heard of the ruler before. And he just reached out to them and we ended up purchasing the patent for it. The reason I think it's really nice is because it's very unique in that the whole system for it is nothing I've ever seen before. Let me grab one real quick. Sorry.
It's okay. I meant to mention maybe you could show some of them.
So it's actually, I call it a ruler. Everyone calls it a ruler, but it doesn't have actually any lines on it. It's just meant for cutting a straight line. You can use it with your mat or in conjunction with another ruler, which I like to do. But it's neat because it has a handle, so it keeps your hand up away from the blade, because we all know the rotary blades are really sharp. But when you press down, there's springs along here that pushes these bumpers down that will grip the fabric, so the ruler won't slide because of the grips, and you don't have to worry about it veering off when you're cutting. You can just keep your hand pressed down at one place. You don't have to travel it across the ruler because it engages all the way across the ruler. So I don't know, we feel like we were placed in the right place at the right time, because I had never heard about them, and without having randomly gone to that shop, we would have never known about them. So we just felt like, we talked about it for a while, like, should we go forward with this? It's unexpected. We don't know how this is going to develop for us. But we decided that in the past, we've always, when we felt like stuff was placed on us at the right place at the right time, that we should listen and go for it. And it really worked out. So we've been very blessed with how it's grown so fast for us.
So you have another style of ruler that you've been putting out there too. Can you show us one of those?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have been better prepared with them. So we have these that are called the Trimlocks that have handles on them, and there's grips on the bottom, and there's a diagonal line going corner to corner. We sell them in a bunch of different sizes, but I use them to trim half square triangles and like hourglass blocks or quarter square triangles. You just set it on, line up the lines, and you can cut one side, turn, and keep cutting around it, because it grips to the fabric and keeps turning it with you, so you don't have to reposition it. And then we just came out with Becca, she actually asked if we had thought about making them into flying geese. So we did design that as well and put those on our site. And it's essentially the same idea, that you would set it on, leave that 1/4 inch at the point, and you can trim, just turn, trim, and turn to get the flying geese block trimmed up.
Is the cost prohibitive or affordable for most quilters?
So the rulers are definitely priced higher than what you would probably pay for a ruler that is the size. Like this is 14 inches by 3.5, because it has the handle. We have to add the bumpers and everything, and we actually make all these by hand. So we don't give them to like a company in China and like, this is the design, make this for us. We do everything. We shape the handle. My husband has a machine that drills all the holes in them. We laser on the logo. I mean, we do everything. My kids even help, like they'll help assemble them and screw everything in, put the bumpers on. So we do everything ourselves. Those are definitely priced probably higher than a ruler that size. But I think the Trimlocks are probably pretty comparable to the same size rulers, but the difference is, like, this doesn't have any lines on it as well. It's meant to trim up this one size block. So it's going to be more what you're looking for. Are you looking for the speed of being able to trim one down really fast, or are you okay with having a ruler that's 4.5 by 4.5 inches but has all the lines and you can trim multiple sizes? It's a lot of people who like them a lot, it's because they have hand or grip issues. So if they're trimming a bunch of half square triangles, Like I've done a quilt that had 300 in it. Even for me, without having arthritis
Yeah.
coming on or anything, your hand gets tired from holding that ruler and trimming all this. You can't do it all in one day.
I know what you mean. That's the part I don't like having to trim down. So I just really don't like doing trimming down.
I
I
used
just
to just
think
leave
it
them.
takes
I'm
too much.
like,
Yeah, I think it takes too much doggone time. So, and I also use triangle paper a lot because I can knock out 400 of them in one day
yeah,
by using a size of paper that I don't have to trim down from. Because if you sew on the lines, there's no way you can mess it up unless you
yeah.
don't cut
And
it
then it
right.
has the lines for you on them that you can cut. Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely just
everything right
depends
there
on
for you.
what you prefer and what you're looking for. I would definitely never say like these are for everyone. It's just it depends on what you're looking for and what you like. I've tried the the triangles on a roll and stuff, and I hate ripping the paper. A
Yeah,
lot
I
of
don't
people
mind
don't
that.
mind. So they're
Yeah,
like, I just sit
it's like
by the TV and rip them off. And I'm like, I can't do it. It drives me nuts. So
yeah.
it definitely just depends on what you prefer, right? What
Well,
you're looking for.
sometimes it's monotonous. I agree with you on that. A lot of times I'll take a whole bunch of them. If he's home, I'll say, "Hey, will you help me take these off?" Tell him how to do it so he doesn't go ripping seams out. You know,
Oh
I think
yeah, or
I think I
stretching
just
them.
like cutting dog ears off more than anything because that's time consuming when you have 400 of them.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you something else. Do you have any future goals that relate to quilting, ruler making, or YouTube?
Uh, future goals. I don't know. I know a lot of people say they like setting goals and having something to aim to. I don't know. For me, I like to just see where it goes and develops on its own
Yeah,
and
you
not
might be
have.
like me, wing it.
Yeah, I would just. I mean, I don't know. For me, I feel like I said before, with so much stuff that's happened with me and my husband in our life, it's all been because it felt like it was like planned beyond what I
Yeah,
knew.
yeah.
And so I just kind of like to leave it up to where it's going to naturally go.
Is there anyone else in your family besides yourself that makes quilts?
No, I can't think of anybody who does. My sister does like to sew, but she more likes to sew like she has a farm. She's sewn like the thing to put eggs in, like the
Oh,
apron for
cool.
eggs, and like she likes to do tote bags and stuff like that. I think I'm the only one that I can think of that quilts. My mom used to, she made some quilts, but she doesn't anymore. My husband's working on two now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, so I'll have to look into that.
Mhm.
Um, does your kids show any interest in your craft?
No, neither of them do. My son has no interest whatsoever. He likes getting the quilts I make for
Of
him.
course, yeah.
He uses them. He keeps them on his bed and everything. My daughter, I actually had her bring, because it's one of my favorites. I'll give you a little peek at. Um, this is her favorite that I've made her, and one of my favorites that I made. It's
Yeah,
a
that's
big twin
cool.
size quilt. She picked out the fabric for it. Whenever I make them, they go with and pick out the fabric for them and everything. She's like to sew pillows and stuff. She's like to do that, but quilts she doesn't really have interest in yet.
Yeah, I remember as a teenager when I took a home ec class, that's when I really decided I wanted to learn how to sew. And I started out making pillows, and then I was making a apron, and then before long I was making my own dresses and skirts for church because it was cheaper to go to the fabric store and buy the pattern and the fabric than it was to go to Cato's and pay $50 for one dress. So
Yeah.
and now the box stores have took possession of all that, so it's not so cheap anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely more to make it yourself now.
yeah, it kind of makes me sad because I was looking for fabric stores that also had patterns and fabric for making clothes. It's not so easy anymore. There's just not
Mhm.
any more of those kind of things. Um, do you have anything else that you would like to share with us about yourself?
Hmm.
Something interesting or something that somebody might not know about you?
So I think I have mentioned it a few times, but most people do find it really interesting that we've lived all over the US. Like I've lived in Minnesota, in Florida, California, Michigan, and now Texas. I used to go to North Dakota a lot in the summers because my grandfather and my father were actually both beekeepers. So they would go up there for, I think it was clover honey in the summer. And then they would get orange blossom honey down in Florida. So my grandparents would travel back and forth between living in North Dakota and living in Florida based on the bees.
Yeah, Florida's changed a lot because I remember when you'd go down the Florida Turnpike, you could see orange trees as far as the eye could see. There's none. After 1989, when we had the snow a few days before Christmas, it dropped all the way down there, and they ended up with a citrus canker problem and wiped out hundreds of acres of it. Kind of sad. You used to could just stop on the side of the road and go walk in there and pick an orange. There's no such thing now. Okay, so now here's going to be the fun part. I'm going to ask you some questions and you have to, answer them because I didn't prep you for this. I want you to share 5 tips that you think all newbie quilt makers could benefit from and why.
Ooh, 5 tips. I think the first would be to not dwell on what everyone tells you is a mistake in quilting. Just have fun with it, because I personally feel like worrying about all the points and everything meeting perfectly when you're first starting takes the joy out of it, and you'll get too frustrated with what you're making. And all of that, when it comes together, isn't really going to matter in the end. Yeah. You're just going to look at it all as a whole, and it's going to be beautiful. It's yours. You made it. 2, I would say, if you're just starting, don't worry about all the different extras that you could have with it. Just get whatever machine you can afford. I have video on my channel where I used a $99 machine from Walmart and made a quilt from start to finish. You do not need the fanciest machine in the world to make a quilt. You just need it to sew. So don't worry about spending all your money on all the things. Just get the machine. Even if you want to make it by hand, you could stitch it by hand if you want to. I would never do it, but just get what you could afford. A little mat to cut your fabric on, 1 ruler, a rotary cutter, the machine, and some fabric, and go. You don't need all the things. So that's 2. What else? I don't know. 3 more. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe you could think of something you wish you had known when you first started out.
Oh, that's a good way to go, because pressing fabric, press your fabric. I did not. So when I made, this is why when I mentioned the jean quilt before is funny. I did not, when I first started quilting, know anything about pressing fabric, ironing fabric, any of that. So I would sew my seams and then just go on to the next row and sew it together. I didn't know about nesting them, any of that. So that jean quilt is a mess because of that, because those fabrics are so thick. So definitely, so that's 2 more. So I have 4 now. So definitely do a 1/4 inch seam, test what your machine's 1/4 inch seam is, and then press your fabric, your seams, press your seams. Yep. It makes such a difference. That quilt would be so, well, yes, it's still an amazing quilt, I have to say. It would have been so much easier to sew.
So it has to be amazing.
What was that?
Denim's hard to sew to begin with.
I broke so many needles on that. Oh, so that would be my 5th tip, is know what needle you need to use for the fabric you are using. I would always just put a universal needle in and just went with that for everything. And I think in most cases when you're making a quilt, that's probably fine. But when I found out there are denim needles, that changed my world with doing quilting on with jeans, because that first one I made, I broke so many needles in them, and I didn't know why. And now I know that it's because my needle just wasn't the right one for jeans.
I used to
and probably because I didn't press the seams either, and they're probably all, I was probably trying to go through 6 layers of jeans.
Okay, so now here's the next set of questions. Share your top 3 notions that beginner quilt makers should have on hand.
So a good rotary cutter and a good blade in it. And know that you should change the blade on it. That's another thing I didn't ever think about, because with scissors, it's the same thing. I mean, you can
Yep.
get them sharpened, but I never thought about changing the blade in it. So I was like, I'd be cutting and thinking, why isn't this cutting as well as it used to?
Mhm.
And then I realized that you can change the blade in it. So a good rotary cutter. Um, what else? I'm trying to think. A really good seam ripper comes in really handy. I've had some that don't seem to work as well as others for some reason. So one that's comfortable to use for you. What else do I really, really like? Good pins. Oh my goodness. Good pins that do not put big holes in your fabric when
Yep.
you're putting them in. Nice, thin, long ones.
Yeah, I like to use the really small, shorter ones.
Oh, let's see.
Because I've
I
been
guess
to
it
many of the
would,
long ones.
yeah, it really would depend on what I like the really long ones for some reason. I don't know.
I have some long ones, I just don't use them as often as I do the smaller ones. And I've discovered that if I don't put, um, washi tape over the little screw on my plate, uh, on my Janome, there's little, holes that look like screw holes, so apparently you can mount something to it, and the hole is just big enough for those itty bitty pins to fall down inside.
Oh no.
Yeah. Freaked me out the first time I realized what happened, and, I got on the Janome because I'm in the Janome group because sometimes things come up, and I was beside myself because I realized the pin fell in there, and I was just thinking all kinds of things. Well, somebody shared a link to where you could actually take the bottom of your machine off, and I took it apart, and you know how many pins I found inside my machine?
How many?
11.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was I didn't even realize it had been going on, so now I keep washi tape over the holes because I don't want pins falling down in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is too funny. So pins, rotary cutter, and what else?
What did I say?
Probably did say something. What was the other thing?
Maybe did I even come up with another one?
Maybe
Probably.
there's one more you need to come up with.
Oh,
Yeah.
the seam ripper, a good seam
Yeah,
ripper.
seam ripper. Yeah, and also with a seam ripper, not all seam rippers are alike, and some of them.
No. And I used to always just use the small one that would come with my machine. And then I finally got one that was bigger and fits in your hand, but and it's so much easier to maneuver it
Yep.
through all the stitches to get them out.
I also have seen some where the ripper part of it is bigger, and I
Hmm.
don't like the bigger heads on
You
them.
can't get them in there where the stitches are
No,
if
you
you have small
can't.
ones.
Yeah, you need the little itty bitty ones where they just slide in there. You're not ripping putting holes in your
Fabric.
fabric. Yeah, because I've done that a few times.
Oh yeah.
Then you have to start all over by just making a new piece of, unless it's not much damage. So, is there anything else you want to say about anything?
Hmm. I don't know. I would say if you have anybody here that's watching that is still thinking about whether or not they want to get into quilting, I would just say to jump in. I mean, I know so many people that have commented on my videos, and I'm sure you get comments too that they don't know where to get started, or are nervous about making their first quilt. It's just fabric. It'll be okay. Jump in, have fun,
Yeah.
and just see how it turns out.
And one other thing I think we all should remember to tell all newbies, you do not need perfection. You just
No.
need to have a good time.
Yeah, not one of my quilts is perfect, I can tell you that, but they are all loved by whoever gets them.
Yeah, we're human beings. We're going to, yeah, we just can't do anything perfect, anyway. And I think that there's too much preaching going on out there about. I saw somebody posted a video called the Quilting Police. Kind of made me laugh when I saw that. Like, oh my
What
goodness.
always makes me better is like, if feel better about it, is if you see you know, some of the blankets that are mimicking quilting that you would buy at a store, even if you look at those, you see where threads are coming undone or where
Yep.
they're not perfect, and that's machine made. So if they can't get it perfect, then I don't think none of ours should be.
Another thing I think that when you first start out, you don't realize how much your skill builds until you
Hmm.
start seeing your quilts change over time. I know with me that's how it's been. You
Oh,
know,
for
when I
sure.
look at my Stratford versus the begonia that I've been working on, my sewing has really gotten really much better. You know, I
Yes.
started on a Singer machine with the first 6 of them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, I mean, like I said, when I first started, I didn't even know anything about pressing seams. So a lot of
Yeah,
those are a crazy mess, but all of them still got finished and all of them still look really good in the end. So you learn all those different techniques and skills as you go. And I can't tell you how many quilts I made before I realized that the patterns I was looking at meant that I needed to be sewing them all at a 1/4 inch seam.
mhm,
I just used whatever the size of the foot was on my machine, which was closer to a 1/2 inch. So I
yeah.
never knew why none of my blocks were coming to the right size, but I just moved forward. I was like, whatever, I'll make it work. And it, you know, since I was doing them all at the same wrong seam and allowance, it all came out, just wasn't the size that I thought it was
It was
supposed to
interesting
be.
for me to go to a 1/4 inch because when I was making my dresses and shirts and skirts, you know, most of the time those either had a 1/2 inch or a
Or
3/8 of an inch
yeah.
seam allowance on them. And when the first time I made a block with a 1/4 inch, I'm like, that can't work. How can that work? But of course, I realize why it's a quarter now. But when you first start out, you don't. A lot of people, I'm sure, have done the same thing I did. Said, why do we have to do it in a 1/4 inch? Why can't we do it at a 1/2 inch? And, you know,
Yeah.
it takes time to realize why. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same. I like to make bags, and a lot of the bag patterns are all different sizes too. And they can be different sizes at different points in the process too. Like it could be a 1/2 inch somewhere and then 5/8 and all this. And you're like, at least with quilting, it's almost always a 1/4 inch and the
Yeah.
same the whole way through. That makes it easier.
Yeah, I haven't seen it any different than that. Yeah. So, okay. So I am glad we got to know you better. And do you want to tell us what, besides your YouTube, do you have any other social media platforms that you post your quilting on that you would like to
So I
share?
have an Instagram. So it's the real So Be It Quilts on Instagram, and then on Facebook. If anybody has Facebook, you could join my group if you want to, and that's just So Be It Quilts on Facebook.
Okay, good deal. Because I was going to ask about that earlier.
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you for coming and letting me sit down with you and us have some conversation. And I hope to see you again soon.
It was a
See
lot of
everybody
fun. Thank
later.
you.